My name is Grace Martin Hall, and I'm a member of the HR program, and I'm here to moderate this session, which is basically showcasing and telling you a bit about some of the work that is done in the program by the students at the what we call the practicum stage, which is the last set of courses, for those of you that are not familiar with the program, but it's the last set of courses that the students do in order to finalize all the requirements for graduation. The practicum involves spending somewhere between 6 and 7 weeks researching an organization. And in the program, there are several practicums. We will only be highlighting 2 of the areas that were done, but we usually have somewhere around 6 or 7 areas that are carried out in the final year of the program. So the 2 areas this afternoon that we'll be looking at is research done on a staffing model for an organization, and the second one is a research practicum that was carried out looking at a high school, and both presenters will be explaining that to you. We start firstly with Victoria. Victoria, you're up.
Without further ado, let me go ahead. Okay, my topic for this afternoon is an assessment of the HR intervention strategies that can complement the traditional administration of discipline in shifting the paradigm to contemporary student-centered behavior modification disciplinary apparatus at Excelsior High School, St. Andrew, Jamaica. Okay, chapter 1, we're going to be looking at the background, the problem identification, the pilot study, the problem statement, the main research question, and the research topic. Okay, the background. Let me begin with the background. A case study was done at Excelsior High School. It means that Excelsior High School is hosting the problems. It is a case study because the focus for this research is on the grade 10 students at Excelsior. Yes, the reason the grade 10 students were selected is that they're at a transitional group where they're moving from the lower school to the upper school. They're transitioning ultimately to tertiary level education and into adulthood or into the world of work. So that is why the grade 10 students were selected. Problem identifications. A myriad of problems were identified. And the first is really the philosophical embrace of the founder. Dr. the Honorable A. Wesley Powell had a dream. He was rejected from Calabar. And on that basis, he said, listen, I'm going to build a school where students of age, social class, academic background can be accepted so they won't be marginalized or singled out. But inherent in that philosophical embrace is the fact that students were accepted at Excelsior with very low academic performances. And the literature will support the view that students with weak averages or low academic performances tend to exhibit disciplinary problems. The problem identification continued with the fact that in grade 10, students select subjects for the CSEC exams. What happens, or what invariably happens, is that students with weak academic background tend to not get the subjects that they desire. It means then that as administrators, we have to put them in other disciplines. The problem with that is that these students really do not want to be doing the subjects that they were assigned. So what you find is truancy, they either don't go to the classes, or if they go, they're very disruptive. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a nightmare. The other issue which relates to subject selection is the fact that in grades 7 to 9, the students are stationary. However, in grades 10 and 11, they have to move from one class to the next class. They have to move from one class to the next class where they go to the teachers. Inherent is the fact that some students, instead of rushing to classes, as we would hope, they loiter, they gossip, they check their cellular phones. So after each, say, double session, after each hour, we have a situation where the students are outside and we have to get them back into classes, and that is another nightmare situation. The inability, ladies and gentlemen, of a few of the grade 10 teachers to design strategies to administer discipline to students at that level. I mean, at the grade 10 level, the men think that they're adults and the ladies think that they think that they're women. It means then that the disciplinary style has to change. The way you discipline a grade 7 student, you can't discipline a grade 10 student like that, because as far as he's concerned, he's a man, and you can't talk to him like that, and she's a woman, etc., etc. So teachers have to use different styles, and that is a challenge for some teachers. Teachers being late and absent from classes poses a challenge, a behavioral issue. The location of the school at 137 Mountain View Avenue. What happens is that Excelsior is situated in a violent community. We're surrounded by Backbush, Nannyville, etc. And the literature will support the view that students who come in from these areas tend to mimic what they see in their communities. So they come into the year group with what they see in the communities, the gangs, the extortion, knives, and they think that disputes are solved in a violent manner. Herein lies the problem. A pilot study was done, and the pilot study was done with a view to ascertaining the extent to which the students will be able to answer the questions on the questionnaire, and also with a view to ascertaining if the students' interpretation of problems are the same interpretations that the researcher has as problems. We wanted to ascertain if there's a convergence between what we see as problems and what the problems actually were. Fortunately, a focus group meeting was held, 10 students, 5 groups consisting of 10 students, so we had 50 students, and we asked questions, and fortunately we did some modifications, some amendments, but for the most part, it was obvious that we could go ahead and administer the questionnaires, as the students would be able to answer the questions. Okay, moving on now. So having looked at the background, the problem identification, and the pilot study, the problem statement was derived. And the problem statement reads, can HR intervention strategies complement the traditional administration of discipline in shifting the paradigm to contemporary student-centered behavior modification disciplinary apparatus at Excelsior? Okay, moving on now to the theoretical framework. For the purposes of this presentation, I will only allude to 2 theorists. The social cognitive theorist, who spoke specifically to the issue of 2 factors that affect behavior. The social factors, meaning family members, colleagues, friends, etc. That's Banduro, 1997, as well as the physical environment from which the students come. The physical environment includes the areas where these students live, as well as the size of the room, the climatic conditions, and all these factors that influence behavior. The Adlerian theory, he looked at contemporary issues as it relates to parent education and birth order within the family. And what the Adlerian theory postulated is that behavioral issues can derive from something as simple as the birth order in the family. For example, if you have a family where there are 3 children, and the last child, as Jamaicans would say, the wash belly, getting all the attention, how would that impact the other 2 children in terms of behavior? Will that affect his or her self-esteem? And how does that translate into behavior? He also looked at the parental education. How high or how low is the level of education of the parents, and how does that impact on behavior? Ultimately, according to Adler, persons really want to belong. Persons want to feel a sense of belonging. Okay, moving on to the role of the teachers. Omara 2009, who posited that teachers contribute to the indiscipline in the schools in light of the fact that there are teachers who they go to the classes late or absent, they don't mark the students' books, they threaten students, harass students, and inadvertently these create behavioral problems. In fact, he said that they do not have the moral authority to speak to the students. The teachers, however, according to Kaufman, who have a positive relationship with their students, who treat the students with respect and there's mutual trust and so on, what Kaufman found is that this inadvertently has helped the students to be confident, strong self-esteem, and reduce behavioral problems. Okay. The human resource intervention strategies. There are a myriad of strategies, and as HR professionals, I guess if you have not been exposed to them, you will be. For the purposes of this presentation, I will only highlight the two that we have been using at Excelsior so far. Strategic issues look at mergers and acquisitions and culture change. But what we've been trying to do at Excelsior is to change the culture of the students and ultimately to have the HR intervention strategies as a part of the curriculum at the school. Human process interventions have been introduced in the form of T groups. What I've been doing is I've been having students placed in groups of 10, have professionals come in, speak with these students about group dynamics, interpersonal relationships, team building. Again, teachers and professionals have been coming in, meeting with the students with a view to having students understand how to relate to each other, how to understand each other's idiosyncrasies, and to perform in groups. Sensitivity training is also emphasized, and this is very important, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of employers now are looking to sensitivity training. In fact, it is almost becoming a criterion where the emotional intelligence of students are being developed here, where students are able to understand that, listen, how does your behavior impact the teacher? For example, when you disrespect the teacher, how do you think the teacher feels? When you disrespect your peers, how do you think your peer feels? And these are emotional issues that I have been working with the students. Process consulting is where I've been looking at problem-solving skills and so on. All right, moving now to chapter 3, the research methodology. The choice, okay, so I'm gonna look at the research methodology, the instruments of primary data collection, and significance of the research. The choice of a case study using a mixed method approach for this research is deliberate. I'm gonna go through quickly because time is coming. An applied research, and as I said before, it was a case study. Quantitative and qualitative strategies were used, as in interviews and so on. I'm kind of rushing through now. The population of interest, the grade 10 year group, 165 samples were distributed and collected. The statistical package for the social sciences, the SPSS, was the primary tool for data analysis. Okay, let me move on now to chapter 4, where we look at the data presentation. Okay, first we looked at the parish where the students came from, and we have 73% came from St. Andrew. The students attending church, 73%. Students who participate in school activities, 54.3%. When asked how they would rate the school's disciplinary system, this is appalling, 26.8% rated the system highly. When asked to rate the level of cooperation between the teachers and themselves, 87.3% had no or 0 to medium cooperation. when asked to rate the level of respect, trust between the teachers and themselves, a whopping 70.9% had 0 to medium respect, and 87.3% had 0 trust. When asked to rate the level of care between the teachers and themselves, a whopping 80.6% had 0 to medium care. These figures are very alarming for me as an administrator at the school. So I went and I did a correlation analysis and looked at different measures to test the reliability of the data. And as you can see, that the data was actually very reliable. What this means, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is time now for us to complement the traditional approach to administering discipline. And this is where it is important now that we integrate the HR intervention strategies. Okay, let me move on now to the key findings. Excelsior's history of embracing students with weak academic background, that has to change, and the principal has been doing an excellent job of trying to eradicate this by implementing programs, a lot of homework programs. Students with averages under 40, they are being encouraged to go to extra classes and so on. We'll have remedial classes. Incorporate HR intervention strategies to mitigate against cases of indiscipline. And the flexibility of the HR intervention strategies, because I think a lot of persons think that HR intervention strategies can only be used in the workplace and in the private sector. But based on this study, it is obvious that that does not obtain at all. It can be used in schools and organizations and other organizations as well. Teachers have to be trained as well. All right, let me move on now to the current status of the study in the interest of time. Okay, I have introduced this behavior modification program at Excelsior last year, since October of last year. What I do on Tuesdays, the students have a 1-hour period, we call it form session, and I've been using the Tuesdays to have persons come in, and we have team building exercises, sensitivity training workshops, conflict resolution exercises, and so on. And so far, grade 10 year group has had the fewest suspensions, detentions, demerits, and so on. In fact, fights, when compared to last academic year and currently in this academic year, fights have decreased by 68%. So the program has been working very well. In fact, the principal has asked me now to institute this program school-wide, and that is what I will be working on for the next academic year. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, yes. Oh, well, now that I get an applause, I guess I can mention that a commendation is on my file from the Board of Management for having introduced the program. So, thank you. But in concluding, though, let me go back to the main research question. Can HR intervention strategies complement the traditional administration of discipline in shifting the paradigm to contemporary student-centered behavior modification disciplinary measures at Excelsior High School? The answer is a resounding yes, and an absolute yes, it can, and it has. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
So we now invite Catherine to do her presentation.